Death Note follows the story of Light Yagami, a genius high school student who discovers a mysterious notebook, the Death Note, which belonged to the like this entity or something, this god or this entity called Ryuk, and kills anyone whose name is written in its pages. The series centers on Light's use of the Death Note to carry out a worldwide massacre of individuals he deems immoral to create a crime free society using the alias of a godlike vigilante named Kira and the efforts of an elite Japanese police task force led by the detective L to apprehend him. All right. So this is not my first time watching, when it comes to like One Piece, One Piece and Oshinoko, like these are my first times. Those are my first times watching those animes and diving into the manga that those animes are based off of or adapted from. But like Death Note, Death Notes, and One Punch Man, this is like me revisiting. This video is kind of like me revisiting my childhood, or well, actually not my childhood, but my teenage years. Um, this is not my first time watching One Punch Man, and this is not my first time watching Death Note. Um, I for me, I never read mangas because I know deep down, and I did some research, that animes, they typically, well, they pretty much, as a matter of fact, they do like a pretty much a straight up copy, like a straight up adaptation from the manga. So like if you don't want to read the manga, you can just watch the anime. You can just watch the anime and not be lost or not be confused or anything. I'm sure like animes, they might make like 3 to 5 little minor twists, whether it's the dialogue or there's like a scene. Maybe there's a scene from the manga that the anime decided, the production studios and everyone involved in the anime decided to omit because they deal with heavy stuff like suicide or something. I don't know. But besides that, animes typically do a straight up copy and paste from, the anime is a straight up copy and paste from the manga. So I've never read the Death Note manga. I just went into the anime, which I think at the time I watched the anime on Netflix, and I watched all of it. I binged like the whole like anime on Netflix, and then I watched that 2017 ish American like version adaptation of of Death Note with Willem Dafoe as the voice of Ryuk. You guys know what I'm talking about. And that was an utter garbage. I'm like, the way they whitewashed and just so much. That movie's dealt with so many horrible things, and I was not okay with so many of them. But anyway, they bastardize like that, the anime and the source material. I'm just like shaking my head. But anyway, yeah, like I watched the anime, and then I watched that live action Netflix Willem Dafoe movie, and then like a couple years later, I decided to, I got some free time, and out of nowhere, I was like, I want to do something. I got a lot of free time. I'm not really studying. I finished all my homework. I finished all my college assignments and high school assignments at the time. So I was like, you know what? Let me read manga. So I decided to read the Death Note manga because I had some spare time, and yeah, it's pretty much, yeah, like reading the manga and then rewatching the anime. Like there's a lot of differences. There's a lot of differences, but it's like there are not a lot of differences, but there are what I meant to say was there was a lot of resemblance. There was a lot of parallels, but it's pretty much the exact same thing. The anime is a straight up copy and paste. Like I said, like why bother? Why bother? Reading the manga when you could just go straight into the anime. But anyway, with all that out of the way, all right. Death Note had a 37 episode. Death Note had a 37 episode anime, which I've watched, and a lot of, anime YouTube channels have also watched and loved it and loved it. And they were blown away by the twists and the turns and the revelations, as I was. It was produced by Madhouse, the same animation studio that made the first season of One Punch Man, which I literally just did a review for One Punch Man. Go ahead and check that out. But anyway, yeah, and there are like a bunch of like live action movies. There was one that came out in June and November of 2006, and another one in February 2008. And a live action television show, a live action TV show, a television drama in 2015. And of course, we had the American film. We had the American film adaptation, which was released exclusively on Netflix, which is the worst. Like, I haven't seen the live action movies, the live action Death Note movies. I've only seen, besides the American film adaptation and the anime, and now recently the manga, and also I watched the 2015 television drama. Besides that, I haven't seen the other films, the other live action films that came out. I don't know where I can find them. I'll look at. Don't worry about it. I think I can look it up, and I'll be able to pull it up in no time. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Death Note, yeah, so like Death Note remains one of the most polarizing yet essential titles in anime and manga history. And as of 2016, as of this moment right now, ladies and gentlemen, it is still, widely regarded as the gateway series for newcomers, though long-term fans continue to debate the quality of its final act, and we can break it down. All right, so I have made some bullet points on my computer that I typed in some bullet points. So we're gonna divide each of them. All right, so I divided each of them into 3 sections. So we're gonna talk about the anime first, then the manga, and then the live action. So yeah, like the anime, like I said, the 37 episode anime was made by Madhouse, which is the same, as I said, the same production and the animation production studio that made the first season, just the first season of the One Punch anime. And they did a great job. I love Madhouse. I love Madhouse. Their animation quality is just stellar and high quality and incredible. I love how they were able to bring the atmosphere to what can I imagine at the moment from the manga. But it is famously a tale of two halves. The first half of the anime episodes, the first half of the anime episodes 1 through 25, it's perfect. It is 100% perfect and flawless, ladies and gentlemen. Like nothing, the pacing just kept going, and it's flawless. It's perfect. This psychological cat and game between, the cat and mouse game between Light and L is just gold. It's absolute gold standard for the thriller genre. Like them trying to find each other out. It's great. I don't want to dive too much deep for those who haven't read the manga or have seen the anime. But anyway, the second half of the anime, episode 26 to the finale, 37, this remains the series' biggest point of contention. A lot of people have had a significant, there was a lot of there was a lot of people have noticed that there was a big, significant drop in tension following a major plot shift, a major spoiler plot shift. The introduction of the successors Near and Mellow. Yeah, it feels rushed, or it either feels rushed or like less compelling than the original rivalry between L and Light. And moving on to the visuals and the sounds, the potato chip scene and the gothic, operatic soundtrack are still legendary. Even like 20 years later, the animation quality holds up as aging like fine wine. The visual that goes with both the visuals and the sound. But yeah, so overall, the anime, the first half, perfect. Second half, if after the major plot shift, the introduction of Near and Mellow, it just doesn't feel the same. It just doesn't feel the same, and as the tension just doesn't feel the same. But it's still intriguing. But it's just not the same. Meanwhile, let's move on to the manga. So, a lot of fans in 2026, as of 2026, argue that the manga is the definitive way to experience the story, particularly for the second half. The anime, condensed roughly 50 chapters of the manga into the final 11 episodes, leading to significant cuts in character development for Near and Mellow. The ending of the manga features a much darker, more visceral ending for Light. While the anime provides a somewhat melancholy exit, the manga portrays his downfall as a pitiful and jarring departure that highlights the true horror of his character. And the art of the manga, like Takeshi Obata's illustrations, are just some of the what people might consider like some of the best in the industry, with the all-in-one edition being a highly recommended budget-friendly way to own the full one. Now, meanwhile, you got the live action. Now you got the live action adaptations, which okay. So even though I haven't seen it, even though I haven't seen the live action Japanese films that came out in 2006, it is. I did hear that it is. When it comes to live action films, I am so hesitant. Because live action television series and or anime, live action adaptations of movies, live action movies or television series, they do a pretty terrible job adapting from the manga slash anime. But from what I heard, this is one of those exceptions where the 2006 films, Japanese films, even though I haven't seen it, I've read the reviews. People love the Japanese films for being faithful and capturing the spirit of the characters. And then you have the one Netflix Americanized film that came out in 2017, which everyone fucking hated. And it got a lot. I've seen the reviews. I've seen people making fun of it. It was not universally, but it was unanimously panned by the core fandom. People described it, critics and fans described it as a goofy, gory, and inane high school trauma that strips away the intellectual depth of the source material. It feels like like a shitty, like CW, Riverdale, like a shitty. It was just bad. It was really awful. But yeah, I did hear, ladies and gentlemen, I will say this. The I have seen the 2015 live action television drama. I have I have I even though I feel like I mostly enjoyed it. I mostly enjoyed it, but I felt like the CGI effects on Ryuk and these other like demonic non-human characters, it's really bad. I won't lie. But anyway, yeah, like I heard a new Death Note series reboot from the Duffer Brothers, Stranger Things, who created Stranger Things, is currently the main focus of anticipations as fans hope for a grittier, more faithful Western take. So I'm hearing like the Duffer Brothers, like if they do a reboot of Death Note, whether it's a live action movie or a live action television series going forward into the future, I'm hearing the Duffer Brothers, the people, the two men, the brothers who created Stranger Things, the creators of Stranger Things, might be the main, people to take up and to adapt this source material. But yeah, so overall, the story of the first half of Death Note is a straight up 10 out of 10. I would give it a straight up 10 out of 10. It is unrivaled because of its unrivaled psychological tension and its brilliance. The second half of the story, I would give it a 6 out of 10. And I'm talking about the anime. And talking about, excuse me, I'm talking about the overall series. The second half of the series, the second half of the series, the second half, I would give it a 6 out of 10, because of its rushed pacing and less interesting antagonists. The manga art is obviously it gets a 10 out of 10 for its masterful detail and iconic character designs. The anime gets a 10 out of 10. One of the most recognizable soundtracks. The anime OST, the original soundtrack. The anime original soundtrack gets a 10 out of 10. One of the most recognizable soundtrack in anime. When you hear it, you're like, oh, Death Note. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say for Death Note, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, like the first half of the anime is great. The second half, the rushing, the pacing feels off. It drops with the pacing, and the introduction of new antagonists and these new characters are less interesting than the dynamic in this cat and mouse game between Light and L. The manga is definitely the definitive way to experience the story of Death Note, particularly for the second half. I mean, the second half of the manga really does develop. There are a lot of scenes and there are a lot of things, and that really develop the characters. Like for example, like the main ones are Near and Mellow. But yeah, and the live action ones, yeah, just mixed feelings all around. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have to say for Death Note. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking time to listen to my review, my thoughts. Please like and subscribe. Definitely subscribe, because that will help me and my YouTube channel out a lot. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video. Peace.